I'll turn this over then to Jackie Berger, Associate Professor of Learning Technologies and Liaison, and also to Damon Honeycutt, the Director of Classroom and Emerging Technology. They're wonderful, they're knowledgeable.
Well, thank you, Monica. The music played again for a second. I don't know, it's so weird. Welcome to our session. Today's session is going to be centered on Hyflex, modalities for meetings, classes, and events. So we're going to define for you today what Hyflex means for Bucks. We'll talk a little bit about the rooms that we already have Hyflex up and running in, some of the rooms that it's coming to quickly. We'll give a little bit of a demonstration, although we can't give a real full demonstration today since we're not allowed to be on campus. So we'll sort of simulate that demonstration. We'll talk a little bit about the equipment that we're using in the classes. We'll talk about the support that's going to be offered in class for that. And then we'll have some time for questions. So hopefully everyone has questions for us. Like Monica said, I'm co-presenting this today with my presenting partner, Jackie Berger. Jackie's in here somewhere. I don't see her on screen.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
There she is.
Almost afternoon. I thought me talking would bring me up, so.
It worked. It worked. All right, so let's get into it here. So what is Hyflex? So there's some different versions of what Hyflex means, but I thought I'd center first on what Hyflex means at Bucks County Community College. So our definition of Hyflex is one where classes meet in person, face-to-face on a campus part of the time with a remote synchronous digital component such as Zoom for the rest of the time. Some students will be attending on campus while others are on Zoom during the same session, such that not all students are together on campus at the same time. Students attend in person one day and remotely on Zoom the other day. So what that looks like for us with that definition is you might have a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday class. So essentially, for this discussion, we'll call your Monday group your Group A and your Wednesday group Group B. So on Mondays, your Group A will be face-to-face while Group B is on Zoom. And then when Wednesday comes, they switch. The B group comes in face-to-face and the A group is either at home, they could be at work, but just the real point is not in the class since we're trying to observe the social distancing guidelines that we have. So let's talk a little bit about some of the modalities that we have here at Bucks, because there's a lot of crossover with these and some of them can be quite confusing. So I removed the Hyflex one from this grid since we just defined it. So starting at the top of the grid, if we just have 100% face-to-face class meetings, faculty here will know these markings, the N, the B, and the U as standing for our 3 physical campuses. So it's possible to have on your course listing, you'll see face-to-face section listed, and then maybe one of these other modalities, including Hyflex. So for mixed modalities, what we're calling mixed modalities at Bucks is classes that meet synchronously using a digital component like Zoom part of the time with an online asynchronous component the rest of the time. So that's what makes this mixed modality different than Hyflex, since Hyflex is synchronous the whole time, whether the student is online or whether the student is face-to-face. Technology-aided courses, classes that meet 100% synchronously using a digital component such as Zoom. So mixed into our Hyflex initiatives, we also have courses that will have a face-to-face population 100% of the time, and then students that are on Zoom 100% of the time. So for your teaching purposes and the way that it feels and looks in the classroom, this is basically identical to Hyflex, with the exception that you have students that are online all of the time. Next is hybrid, classes meeting face-to-face on campus part of the time with an asynchronous component the rest of the time. So again, similar to Hyflex, except the online component is asynchronous. So usually for our purposes, that's going to be delivered through Canvas, that asynchronous work. Then we have hybrid technology, classes meeting in person, face-to-face on a campus part of the time with a remote synchronous digital component such as Zoom for the rest of the time. When the classes meet face-to-face, all students and faculty are on campus at the same time. And when classes meet remotely, synchronously, all students and faculty are on Zoom together. So again, on the surface, this looks sort of similar, except that you're not flipping your A and B group, you're flipping between face-to-face and synchronous online. I have seen some faculty over the past semester teach these sessions, these remote sessions from the classroom. So an instructor might be in a classroom face-to-face the period before and decides they're going to stay in the classroom that has the Hyflex technology, because we already have the microphones and cameras and monitors built into the class. Like I said, I've seen instructors elect to just stay in the room and teach that from the classroom. Although you don't have to, you could teach it from home or you could teach it from your office. And then I think everyone here knows the definition, or pretty good idea of what e-learning and online is, which is just, now it says fully asynchronous online. I know when I studied for my master's degree, I did everything online at Drexel. And there were times during the semester for each course where there was some online synchronous work, right? But that was such a low percentage of what the work is that even those classes would basically meet what that definition of e-learning and online learning is. So modalities that are offered here at Bucks. So let's further define these just quickly. So for remote synchronous, courses will use technology like Zoom for classes at designated times as listed in the schedule. This means classes include regular virtual class meetings where students can interact with instructors and fellow classmates. It may be all class time or a portion of the scheduled time, with the remaining learning time online asynchronously. And I would like to add to that too, that in those interactions, the students are also interacting with the course content. And then online asynchronous. Classes are taught using a learning management system. And for our part, we're using Canvas. These classes do not include synchronous or remote meeting times. Online courses do have deadlines for submitting and completing work and taking quizzes and exams. They're not self-paced. So Hyflex room locations that we have already currently running at Bucks. So let's talk about these for a little bit. And then the picture here, this is our lower Bucks 203 classroom. And can't see some of the other equipment that's integrated into this room in this picture, but we will talk about the different pieces of equipment that we've built into the room. So Founders 247 is up and running. That's one of the practical nursing rooms. And they use that room not just for classes and quizzes with their students, but I know they also use that for department meetings. So that's another use that we can get out of the Hyflex rooms. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on through the presentation. Gateway 203 and 205. So for those of you that are familiar with those rooms, you'll remember that that has the divider that goes between the rooms. Now, the Hyflex equipment in those rooms is meant to be used separately. I say that for these two rooms because those of you that have instructed in there or maybe taken a presentation in those rooms knows that you can control one side of the room from just one of the teacher stations. So if you had a really large face-to-face class, typically some of those would be put in there because we could project content from one teacher station onto the projector that's basically in the other room. Now, that won't really work with the Hyflex equipment, except for that we could project the content that is going on there, but we wouldn't want to mix the audio across those two rooms. Then in GRUP, currently we have 3 rooms in there, with one of them being a double room, GRUP 320, which was actually the first room that we installed what is now the Hyflex equipment. Before our original COVID break back in March of 2020, Jackie and I had been working with our provost, Lisa, and our deans to deliver something similar to what we're doing in our dedicated multi-campus rooms, Gateway 119 and at Upper and Lower Bucks, but at a lower technology price and barrier, and something that could be operated by our faculty. So at the time, we were sort of operating with the idea that we were calling it multi-campus 2.0. And then as COVID hit, the conversation sort of switched from where we were originally. How could we potentially bring students into our classrooms that may be situated at home or maybe situated at work, and it turned into what is now our Hyflex initiative. Also in GRUP, we have GRUP 420, which is installed with this Hyflex equipment, and then 430, 432, which is, I think that's a business room. Library 120 is in the arts area, and this one has been up and running since the beginning of last fall. M&M 12 and M&M 17 we have up and running. Rollins 116 is up and running, and then pictured here, Lower Bucks 203 and Upper Bucks 119. So I guess it's important to mention right now that at both the lower and the upper campuses, we only have one Hyflex room installed at present time. So looking ahead to some of the other classrooms that we're going to have up and running in the spring of 2022, so this spring semester coming up, is Founders 313. We have Gateway 129, which is pictured here. Hicks 120, which will be interesting because that's a true art room. So I'm really interested to see how that technology gets used in there and what the experience is going to be like for the students. That is going to be a big experiment, in my opinion. Library 107. So that is one of the music labs. And then in M&M, we're going to complete room 10, room 15, and room 18. And I actually believe that Russ and Holly, who I have to give a big shout out here too. I don't know if they're on this call, but although Jackie and I do a lot of planning with faculty and training, none of this gets done without Holly and Russ installing this equipment. So I can't overstate how important they are to the whole Hyflex initiative. So some of the equipment that we have installed in the Hyflex room. So you'll have to forgive the resolution on some of these pictures. They really did look better when they were smaller. The majority of our rooms, we have this Logitech PTZ Pro 2 camera installed in the room. Some of the other rooms, we have a substitute camera, the clear one, I think it's the Unite 150, which is a similar camera. Both of them have remotes. And the intention is for these cameras to be able to be operated by faculty. So can't really make out too clear on this Logitech remote here, but the Logitech camera and remote allows the user to set 3 camera presets. And by pointing the remote at the camera and hitting the number of the preset, the camera will recall that setting. So similar to what anyone who has been in our dedicated multi-campus rooms, Gateway 119 and the rooms at Upper and Lower Bucks, will remember, other than the fact that there's 2 cameras in there, so there's a little bit of a difference, but that typically we would have 3 camera settings in the room. 2 would be focused on the instructor, and then the 3rd would be focused on the students in the room. Now, that's just sort of like a default setting for us, like as a program. Instructors could set those settings and have the camera zoomed in or pointed to wherever they liked. In addition, anyone that's in the classroom that's using this camera or the room has the ability to sort of fine tune that if they like. You know, you can tilt, pan, zoom, and zoom out. The replacement camera that we've used in some of the rooms, the clear one, which I mentioned, also has a remote. That remote's a little more complex, and there's a myriad of presets that you can give to that. You have the option to do a lot more than 3. But same with this camera and that camera, you can make your own settings on them. You can adjust those settings. You can just make them up as you go along. Next, in all of the Hyflex classrooms and also in our multi-campus rooms is the Clear One ceiling microphone array. So from this one microphone, seemingly one microphone, it's actually 3 capsules inside that microphone. So it provides a decent amount of coverage across the room. And there's sort of a caveat to that because it also really depends on the size of the room and the exact placement of the microphone in the size of that room. So like I said, like in the multi-campus room, this provides coverage all around the room. So students that would not necessarily be in the classroom with the teacher have the opportunity to hear any kind of conversation that's happening in the face-to-face room. So that, that includes the instructor and the students that are in there. And again, like I said, we have this microphone in all the rooms. We haven't substituted or had to substitute out because of equipment shortages, this particular device. in all of the Hyflex rooms, we're using this particular audio interface. So like I said, with the Clear One microphone, that microphone has 3 capsules. So that microphone also has 3 outputs that we have to somehow to deliver to the computer and ultimately up into Zoom. So this particular device, researching different devices, both with quality and price, we arrived on this one. And I know I've been pretty happy with it. It allows us to plug in all 3 of our mics, and actually gives us a little bit of leeway too if we need to perhaps add an additional mic for the instructor, like perhaps a clip-on mic. I know in the multi-campus room, we've done that for some instructors that may be a little more soft-spoken or really rapidly move around the room. That's a nice option for us. So this gives us options to be able to do that if we need to. And then linking all this stuff up to the computer quickly, you can imagine we run out of USB ports on any given teacher station that we're using. So for the most part, most of the rooms are using this exact USB hub. We do have some substitute ones for them, but the main feature of all of them is that we have 7 inputs that we can, so 7 different devices we can plug in there. Now, we're not using them all in the room, but this gives instructors the option to also use that to plug in any media that they may have, jump drive. And if you notice on the side of the device here, there's what looks like 2 additional USB ports. They're actually charging ports. So if an instructor comes in and they need to charge their device, their phone, their tablet, they can plug right into that and they can have that up there on the teacher station with them while that's charging. All right, and then the feature, one of the real features of the Hyflex room that makes this different than any of our existing multi-campus rooms or really any other video conferencing experience in the room is the addition or the presence of this, what we're dubbing the second teacher station. So for our Hyflex rooms, we're using this second teacher station mainly for the instructor to be able to see the students that are on Zoom. As everyone here knows, we've all been using Zoom now for so long. When content is being shared, the amount of views, people that you can see, the thumbnails, is drastically reduced. So at best, you're getting 4, and they're really small. So what we use this for is the instructor will actually connect this second teacher station to the existing Zoom meeting. So the one that is being launched from the main teacher station. They connect this particular station to that, and then they can view the students that are connected to them a little more clearly. You notice on the stand connected to this TV stand here, you see a second computer there and a wireless keyboard and then remote for the TV. So you can take the wireless keyboard back to the teacher station with you. Once the computer and the TV are turned on, you can operate everything from there remotely, in the sense that you don't have to be standing right on top of it to key in anything. And the keyboard that we're using, you'll also notice also has a mouse pad on it. So we don't have a need to have a wired mouse or wired keyboard with this Logitech keyboard. And on top, some of you may have already noticed an additional webcam that's up there. So in addition to having students for you to be able to see your students more clearly, the second webcam on here allows the instructor to give a second view of either themselves or the students in the class, which is nice because then the students that are remote can still see some of the students that are in the class, or maybe even all the students, depending on the size and the shape of the room and the number of students that are in there. I should also note that this second teacher station, it's connected wirelessly to the internet. So the only thing that we need to really be near is power. So there's not really any one point in the room where this teacher station needs to sit. That in itself is flexible. The instructor can move that to wherever they feel comfortable with it or wherever they think it makes sense for them, which is, I like that. So let's go on here. Before I continue here into sort of a little demo, does anyone have any questions for me right now up to this point? I can't really see anybody, so you have to speak up if you do.
And there's nothing in the chat right
Okay.
now, Damon.
Okay, thank you, Monica. All right, so I'm going to go on a little bit here. So, and we're going to give a little bit of a live demo as much as I can. So let's talk about if you're an instructor coming into a Hyflex class for your first time, what you're confronted with and what you really need to be thinking about. So Jackie and I, when we do our one-on-one sessions or institute sessions with faculty, getting them ready to teach in the Hyflex environment, what we are recommending that you do first is come into the classroom and do what you would normally do. Turn the lights on, turn the computer on at the main teacher station, sign into that, launch your Canvas course space if you're using Canvas, and then launch your Zoom meeting for your class from that main teacher station. And however you're doing that, whether you're doing that from Canvas, or whether you're going to the Zoom website and signing in, or whether you're just opening the Zoom app up itself and signing into that. Those of you that are using Canvas and Zoom know that's really nice. You just sign into the Bucks network, you launch your Canvas course space, and you launch your Zoom meeting from there. And Canvas and Zoom do the handshake in the background, and you never actually have to sign into Zoom, which is pretty nice. Now, on the second teacher station, you again will not have to sign into Zoom. We actually don't want you to sign into Zoom because Zoom will only allow a particular user to be signed on to one Zoom meeting at a time. So what you would have to do first is on the second teacher station, once you've turned the system on and signed into the computer there, like you would any Bucks computer, you would need to locate the Zoom app on that computer. In the Hyflex rooms, they're all on the desktop. So you would just look on the desktop for the Zoom app and then launch that. You could also look in the Windows menu and scroll all the way down to Z, and you could find it there as well. So this is what the Zoom app looks like when it's ready for you to sign in. Once you do sign in, and again, on the second teacher station, we're not going to, but just follow with me for just a couple seconds here. What will happen is when you sign into the main teacher station is you're going to need to be able to check to see which devices Zoom is picking for you on that main teacher station. So there's a couple different ways to do that. If you're signed into the Zoom app on the main teacher station, and that would happen automatically for you if you launched your meeting, you would locate the app, or you could actually do it in the meeting controls. If you're going to do it from the app, you would just look for the settings cog there. And if you clicked on that settings cog, then it's going to open up your settings. So it would actually open up into the general tab, the very first one, if you go this way. So then you would locate your video tab, which is just the next one down. And then in the drop-down menu under where it says camera, you would click on that and select the proper device. Now, Jackie and I have been making it a point to meet with all faculty members in the room that they're going to instruct Hyflex from before the first day they do that, so that we can go ahead and make those settings. Zoom will recall your settings from then on. If the teacher station is re-imaged, and that does happen periodically, each semester or maybe once a year, depending on the frequency of the leases for those computers and such, you would have to do it again. But let's just say, I know that Andy's not re-imaging computers as a general rule in the middle of the semester. So this would be done before the semester would start. You would sign in or launch your meeting, and then we would go through these settings, cameras. Now, in the classroom, you wouldn't be looking for the Microsoft LifeCam. We would be looking for either the Logitech camera that I showed earlier or the clear one. Again, Jackie and I would be meeting with each and every one of you to handle this ahead of time. And then we would do the same thing for the audio. Click on the audio tab. This one, additionally, we would need to adjust which speaker we would want to use in the room. The majority of the time, in almost all of our rooms, that would be either same as system. And then we would select the microphone that we would want, and that mic would be the actual audio device. Again, we would do this with you as we train you. All right, Jackie, I'm going to throw this over to you for support, to talk on the support that we're providing, and then I'm going to give a demo of, as much as I can, of what it would look like. And for you guys, that view would really be what it would look like for your students today, since you're going to be joining my meeting, or you have joined my meeting.
Okay. Can you go to the next slide?
Sure.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so as you heard from Damon, there's been a lot of effort, research, testing, learning on the fly, and using the hardware and implementing the processes for connecting. So all of those nuts and bolts are in place. And as he also mentioned, we would meet with you in your room to run through all of that. The other area, the other piece to this to give some consideration, it's not just the hardware, how your mic works in the classroom. It's what are you doing with your students when half of them are tiny little video screens on Zoom and the other half are sitting with you face to face. So we have had experience in doing this for years with our original multi-campus setup, as Damon mentioned, accelerated with COVID and these new technologies we're using to bridge classrooms. So we've identified some things that work well. Using Canvas as the one-stop shop for your students to access course materials, for you to do grading, to take attendance is kind of like the essential backbone to everything you do in your courses that are meeting in these kind of different modalities. And then there's some fun, engaging things that we've had faculty do with their students, using tools that allow face-to-face and remote students to work together. So there are features within Zoom that you're probably familiar with, like chat, breakout rooms, doing polls or reactions that you could do with your Zoom attendees. And some of those things you can have your students who are face-to-face interact. There's some audio issues there that we'd have to practice through. And then there are some other tools that work just by location of the student, such as Nearpod. So that's a tool that we license that allows students to access content and activities that you create from a smartphone or from anywhere. Getting all of this together requires planning, and that's where Damon and I can help you. So if you think about putting yourself in the mix for teaching in one of these modalities, and you want to chat about converting some of the things you already do, either face-to-face, synchronous, remote, to a mixed modality course, just feel free to reach out to us and we can help you plan, get everything set up in Canvas so that you're ready to go. And when you're meeting and talking about microphones and connecting Zoom stations, you have that plan in place, those assignments and activities in place, your classroom management rules and systems in place so that you can focus on running your course and engaging with your students no matter where they are. So we have a lot of support resources here for you. It is new. We have several here today that have experience with these modalities. So maybe towards the end, if we have time, we can hear from some folks. But in the meantime, I'll turn it over back to Damon for a little demo of what this looks like.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. I'm going to just stop my screen here now for a second. I'm going to come back to it though. Okay, so we're going to use a little creativity here since it's not possible for us to be in the classroom today. And I want to pick up sort of where I was in the middle of part of my presentation, where I was talking about once you've come into the classroom and you've signed into the main teacher station, launched your Canvas course, maybe gotten your material ready to go, then you're going to focus your attention on what we're calling the second teacher station, for lack of any better name, and it's functional. So you would turn on that TV, turn on the computer, sign into the computer, just as you would any Bucks computer. And then from there, the process changes a little bit for you. Like I said, we would want to locate the Zoom app on that second teacher station. And in all of our Hyflex rooms, the app is located on the desktop. But again, if for some reason it wasn't there or you didn't see it, you could locate it in your Windows menu. It will be all the way at the bottom. So once you launch that on the second teacher station, you do not want to sign into it. Like I said, we're going to just join a meeting on that one. So you would literally just click join a meeting, and then you can punch in the meeting ID number of the Zoom meeting that you're using for your class. So there's a couple different ways to find that meeting ID. If you're launching from Canvas, it's listed right in there in your Zoom Pro module. But it's also contained right on the screen, actually, in the meeting that you're in. If you took your cursor, and you can do it now, I think, take your cursor and go across the Zoom screen, if you look to the top left, you should see a green shield with a check mark. And I'm not actually sure if just people that are signed on to a meeting see that. Do folks see that? Okay, so if you click on that, you'll see the meeting info there, and at the top, the meeting ID number is there. So when I was saying that you could bring the wireless keyboard over to the main teacher station, you just come over to your main teacher station once you've turned on the second teacher station and signed into it. And then once you've launched the Zoom app, you can then key in the meeting ID number. So once you do that, then you'll go ahead and you'll join that meeting. So essentially you're joining your Zoom meeting as a guest, right? Because you're not signed in, so Zoom won't know who you are. Now I'm going to do this from my second computer here in my office at home. So in a second, you're going to see me appear a second time on the screen. But I'm going to describe to you the process as we go through it. Again, I wish we could be doing this from the classroom. It would be a little more clear what you would see. But when you click on join a meeting and then key in the meeting ID number and click join, the first option you're presented with is whether you want to join that meeting with video. So you do want to join that meeting with video if you intend to use the webcam that's situated on top of that second teacher station. So then what's going to happen then is, since you're not signed into Zoom and you're essentially a guest in your own meeting, Zoom is going to place that second teacher station into the waiting room. Now, Jackie very graciously, or Monica did, let me into the room. So you should be seeing that. Well, you will be seeing it in a second in the participants tab. So once you would let yourself in from your own waiting room, you're presented with a critical piece in this process. And I'm going to say the majority of the help calls that we received through the fall semester, and really the overwhelming majority of them were within the first 2 weeks, and things really did settle down, was audio issues. There was lots of reports of audio issues. So on the second teacher station, you do not want to connect audio to the Zoom meeting. So everyone here is an experienced Zoom user, and you'll recall that every time you join a Zoom meeting, at some point you're asked whether you want to join with computer audio or you want to test your speaker and microphone. So we don't want to join with computer audio. So you would actually click X on the white box that pops up, and then Zoom is going to ask you, are you sure? And then you press continue. And that would join that second teacher station to the meeting, but no audio, because we're really just using it for its video component. That's all. Now you should see me in the participants tab. I named this second teacher station. So it looks like it's placed me in the participants tab all the way at the very bottom of the participants tab. And you can see me over here. It's happening. You can see some of my guitars and my Christmas tree in the office over here as well, right? So now if you can use your creativity and your imagination here, this is really the top of the second teacher station. And that camera that's on top is actually on a swivel base. So it can be turned without turning the TV. So you can adjust the TV where you can see it the way that you like. And then you can turn that camera and you can tilt it, point it. The only thing that you can't do with that one is zoom. Well, zoom in. It's just basically a regular webcam. And then you are connected with both stations to your Zoom meeting. In effect, you're in what we're defining as our, in the technical aspect, our Hyflex environment. So there's a couple other steps that you want to go through here to maximize what the view is going to look like on the second teacher station. And again, you're going to just kind of have to use your imagination a little bit here, but we can simulate it at home, fortunately. So when I share some content from the main teacher station, it's going to resize the screen on the second teacher station, just like it's resized the screen that you're viewing right now, right? So what we would do on the second teacher station is come over to it, and you can do it at home on your own, is look to the very top right corner of your screen, and you're going to see a button that says view, right? It's sort of translucent at the top, depending on the color of the background on your computer. If you have a really light background, you're going to almost not be able to see it, but it's there. And if you click on that word view, it presents us with several options. So as an instructor, you would do this on your second teacher station. You would click on view, and then you would click side-by-side gallery. Does everyone at home see that? Okay, so you would click on side-by-side gallery, and then what it's going to do is immediately it's going to size the content as the largest piece on the screen, and it's going to take the thumbnail pictures and move them to the right. So the whole purpose of this second teacher station is for you as the instructor to be able to see your students more clearly that are on Zoom. So you don't really need to see your content on that second teacher station because you're already viewing it on the main teacher station and you're projecting it to the front of the class. So it's already there for you twice. So what you would do is on the second teacher station, take the keyboard, the wireless keyboard, and we're going to use the mouse feature on this. If you move to the right of the content, you'll notice there's a little sizing button that's there. There's sort of a line that's drawn vertically, right? So if you go ahead and left click on that and grab that, move it all the way to the left, it will size it almost all the way out of view. Not quite all the way out, but it's actually smaller than the thumbnails of your students at that point. And then you'll see that you can see your students pretty decently, especially sitting right in front of your computer, but you're also going to have to imagine that this is going to be on a 55-inch TV screen that's in the classroom, right? So it's immediately going to be 3 or 4 times the size of your laptop window that you're looking at it right now. So those thumbnail pictures of your students will be comparatively larger as well. Now you're completely ready to instruct in the Hyflex environment from a technical standpoint. You've come into the room, signed into the main teacher station and done everything you need to do there. And then you've turned on and signed in and then joined the Zoom meeting as a guest, essentially, from the second teacher station, shared content, and then resized the screen. Now, even though that seems like there's a lot to do, you're really sort of done having to do any of these extra little pieces throughout the remainder of your class. And I'm going to illustrate one of them now. If I am to stop sharing content, you see the screen goes back to how it originally was. But if I now, within the same call, reshare content again, and it doesn't have to be the same thing, but I'm going to share the same thing. Your screen that you've just previously adjusted should go back to where you had it again. Now, mine here at home didn't, and it makes sort of making me look like a liar. But I can assure you in the multi-campus rooms that if you're then to stop sharing, restart sharing, it will automatically go back to the resizing that you originally did there. It won't stay that way when you come back into the room for your next class. You'd have to do that one time again whenever you've started your screen sharing. But when you go in and out of screen share, when you come back to the share, it will come back to that. So that's the quick and dirty from home demo that we've given. Anyone here that is interested in teaching in this Hyflex environment or has found themselves thrust into it at this point and hasn't met with Jackie or myself, rest assured we will be meeting with you very shortly because we're quickly running out of time before the start of this semester. And we can, you'll certainly have enough time to get in there and get some hands-on and get yourself more comfortable. Realistically, and I'm sure most of you know this, with any new technology in the classroom, it usually takes you a couple turns through it till you really have it, under your thumb and you're not really worried about it. So the best thing that you can do for yourself if you're coming into the Hyflex classroom is give yourself an extra 5 minutes if it's available to you, or spend some time ahead of time in the classroom and just, get in there and just get a feel for it and see what it feels like. But like I said, again, realistically, with calls for service, we see them we saw them in this semester really subside greatly within the first 2 weeks. Folks really got it, a handle on what was going on and what they needed to do. And fortunately for all of us, or maybe unfortunately, I'm not still sure yet, but we've been using Zoom for so long now. Really, it's not a stretch to call each and every one of you that's on this call now a Zoom expert in your own right, because you've all been using it to deliver instruction. So whether you think you're a Zoom expert or not, the reality is you kind of really are already. Let me stop the share and let's see if anyone has any questions for Jackie or myself at this point.
Hey, Damon, I was wondering if Zoom has done anything, or you guys have done anything about the 25 thumbnail limit for students.
That's a great question, Stretch. Zoom does have a feature, and I can point you to the feature, each of us. If you take your cursor and go across the screen, you'll see the Zoom toolbar appear at the bottom. If you look next to the video icon, the caret, the up pointing arrow, if you click on that and then select video settings, your video settings open. If you scroll down to the bottom of the video settings page, so it's in the middle, you'll see a little button where it says maximum participants displayed per screen in gallery view. The default is for the selection of 25, but you can change that to 49. Now, I don't know if that holds for you or you need to do that each time because I don't really use the 49 participants, but you could change that for yourself. So you could do that on screen on the second teacher station if you wish, Stretch. So I don't know that you're going to have 49 on there, but it certainly sounds like you have more than 25 and you want to see them all at the same time.
Right, that was exactly what I was asking. Thank you. Is that a new feature or was that always?
I've seen it over the last 6 months. I don't recall them really making a big to-do about it, like they did the closed captioning tool that they released for for us, but it's been there for a little while. I myself personally don't find it so useful, but it seems like it will be useful for you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I see something in the chat. You only have the option if your screen is large enough to display that. It does stick. Okay, excellent. Thanks, Deb. We have any other questions? Paul says, I thought money made sense. I got it. Any other questions from anyone on this?
Would it, excuse me, would it be a good idea to have like a little cheat sheet in each of these rooms with the steps, just in case someone
Wonderful.
forgets or?
We do actually. Thank you for saying that. In the Canvas course space that Jackie built out in conjunction with our multi-campus literature, Jackie's put together step-by-step directions for faculty. So they're available to everyone there. Anyone that is going to teach in either the multi-campus or Hyflex environment has to see Jackie and I at some point before they can go in there contractually. So Jackie adds their names to that course space and it's always available to you as an instructor. So you can go ahead and recall those. You can download those and put those somewhere for you to quickly be able to find, but they do exist.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that, Damon. And Monica, thank you for your question because it reminded me that I forgot to talk about the MOA. So as per the contract, as Damon mentioned, we do have to do training. That includes those who have taught multi-campus using our original setup with the 3 campus locations bridged together. So if you're teaching multi-campus or Hyflex, you will get training. If you've taught multi-campus before, you get half the training, just the in-classroom part. And if you're brand new to it, there's an asynchronous training piece that is in that Canvas course space and a face-to-face piece so you can practice using the tech. You do receive compensation for both options. So you hear from us. As soon as we know you're scheduled, you hear from us.
Do. I wanted to highlight one other thing that I neglected to mention as I was giving my demo. And some of you may be thinking it and just didn't ask it. How is a student with, we have how many people on here right now? 47. So we'll just say 20. How are they supposed to be able to see the instructor and the second teacher station clearly when all these thumbnails are the same size? So as many of you I'm sure recall, you can pin Zoom video. So you could, as an individual user, pin both the main teacher station and the second teacher station video as a student so that you're sure that you're going to be able to see the instructor and that second video that's there. The instructor could also spotlight it or pin it themselves, but as the instructor goes in and out of the sharing content share, that changes. So I personally feel it's best left to the user. That is something as an instructor that you may think to mention to your students, especially for the first several weeks of class. Just remember that you can pin this video, you can pin both videos so that they're more clearly able to see you as you're instructing remotely to them. Well, that's all I have. If no one has any other questions, if you think of any questions, you can certainly email Jackie or myself, and we will get back to you as quickly as possible. As Jackie stated, we will see each and every one of you in some fashion if you're coming through Hyflex or multi-campus, that's for sure. So thank you for attending our session today. We really appreciate it.